Jeffrey Epstein is reigniting scrutiny around one of the most disturbing scandals of the past decade.
Jeffrey Epstein died in federal custody in 2019.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Where are the Epstein files?
Jeffrey Epstein, a name that has gone from being a symbol of mysterious wealth and elite influence to one of the most high-profile and sordid criminal cases of the 21st century. A financier who not only knew kings and presidents, but seemed to dictate the rules of the game to them. His life was a perfect spectacle, a private island, a personal jet with the call sign Lowly. But behind this glossy facade lay an empire built on manipulation and fear. He seemed untouchable, but how is this possible? How could a man who committed monstrous acts remain under the protection of the elite for decades? In this article, we will not consider unconfirmed versions or speculation, nor will we discuss individual figures outside the scope of official investigations. Our goal is to tell the story of the system that allowed this evil not only to exist, but to thrive. We will talk about how huge amounts of money buy not only luxury, but also silence, and how institutions of power turn their backs on justice. We will explore how this immunity was built and why, in the end, it had to be paid for. Jeffrey Epstein was born into a middle-class family in Brooklyn. He did not graduate from either of the two universities he attended, but managed to get a job teaching mathematics and physics at the prestigious Dalton Private School in Manhattan. According to his contemporaries, his lessons went far beyond the scope of textbooks. He violated the dress code and attended informal events with students. It wasn't just hooliganism, it was an early test of the limits of what was permissible. Dismissal for professional misconduct was inevitable, but it became his first golden ticket. Thanks to his school connections, Epstein got a job at the investment bank, Bear Stearns on Wall Street. By the age of 27, according to available data, he was already earning an astronomical $800,000 a year. He created tax havens for the super rich. He didn't just optimize taxes, he knew how the system worked from the inside and how it could be circumvented. Inside the bank, his methods caused concern, and after a while, he was fired again. However, each such episode did not lead to a fall, but on the contrary, became a transition to new, even more profitable areas of activity. How did a man who was fired twice for unprofessionalism and questionable behavior manage to quickly become a trusted confidant of global billionaires? It wasn't luck. It was a strategy he had honed over the years, starting with small things in the corridors of an elite school. In the 1980s, Epstein found refuge in an even darker place. He began working with Stephen Hoffenberg at Towers Financial Corporation. It wasn't just business. It was a multi-million-dollar scam, one of the largest pyramid schemes ever to rock America. Investors lost hundreds of millions. Hoffenberg went to prison for 20 years. And here's a very interesting detail. Hoffenberg, while in prison, openly claimed that Epstein was the mastermind behind the operation. But what did Jeffrey do? He got out of the game 3 years before the structure collapsed. He got away clean. He didn't just escape punishment, he learned the most important lesson in this game: be the first to jump off the sinking ship and then use that experience as a pass. This episode is a perfect illustration of his philosophy. It is a vivid example of how, in certain circles, risk and proximity to questionable operations are not always perceived as a stain on one's reputation, but more often as an element of survival and growth. He demonstrated that for certain elites, your ability to escape the consequences means more than your ethical principles. How did he foresee the collapse while his partner was in prison? The answer is not luck. It lies in what Epstein did immediately after he got out of the deal. And how did he manage to instantly transform himself into a trusted advisor to the global elite? After his successful escape from Towers, Epstein needed a foundation, and he found it where no one expected. Not in dark corners, but at the pinnacle of glossy capitalism. The main source of his power became Leslie Wexner, the tycoon behind Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works. A man whose fortune was measured in billions gave Epstein complete control over his assets. Think about it. The founder of an empire symbolizing female beauty and the American dream handed the keys to his financial castle to a man who had just been kicked out for fraud. It was genius. Wexner didn't just give Epstein money, he gave him the perfect facade. Epstein became the private advisor who only works with billionaires. It was his calling card, created by someone else's wealth. Under this legend, he attracted other giants, Leon Black and the elite, willing to pay for his exclusivity. According to court documents from 1999 to 2018, his shadow enterprises earned more than $800 million, and almost all of it was pure commission for access to his world. How could such dependence on one person arise among the most powerful people on the planet? And what did Wexner get in return for his absolute financial surrender? An empire built on someone else's trust always collapses. When the truth about his deals began to leak out, his main patron, Leslie Wexner, saw the light. Wexner publicly stated that Epstein wasn't just managing his money, he was stealing it. Tens of millions of dollars disappeared into the financier's pockets. But even then, Epstein found a loophole. He fled to the tax haven of the U.S. Virgin Islands to pay pennies to the state while his clients made him fabulously rich. He surrounded himself with names that sounded like the pinnacle of the financial Olympus, heirs to corporations, giants like Highbridge Capital Management. He turned his reputation into a filter. If you're not a billionaire, don't even call. It was in 2004, after a clever deal with JPMorgan Chase, that his personal fortune skyrocketed to $500 million in net assets. He stood at the top, dictating the terms of the game. But the main question remains a mystery. How did a man whom his own main client publicly called a thief manage to so easily win the trust of the next level of the elite? What did he know about them that made him indispensable? The answer lies not in his accounts, but in his secrets. Behind pyramid schemes and the theft of billions, there is always something more than just mathematics. To become untouchable, you need more than just a bank account. You need a pass to a private club. And that pass was given to Jeffrey Epstein by her, Ghislaine Maxwell. The daughter of a media mogul, she herself, part of the British aristocracy. She was his guide, his social engineer. She opened doors for him that most people didn't even know existed, to boardrooms, royal residences, the corridors of power. His entourage became his main shield. And although the names of many world leaders and celebrities flashed alongside him, it is important to emphasize that acquaintances or communication do not imply involvement in crimes, and most of these individuals have not been charged. For Epstein, this was something priceless, immunity from the usual rules. And this immunity required a setting. His properties, from penthouses in Manhattan to ranches in New Mexico, were not just homes. They were bastions of his power. And, as the investigation revealed, the most sinister of them all, Little St. James Island, James became not just a luxurious retreat, but the center of his monstrous operations. How could one man build such a dense network where personal connections with the right people replaced the law? And what exactly did Maxwell know about what was happening behind the closed doors of these mansions? We are getting closer to the very heart of this mystery. Behind the facade of billionaires and luxurious islands lay a monstrous machine. This was not spontaneous violence. According to investigation materials and court documents, Epstein and his accomplices did not just create a scheme, they built a veritable organized industry for the exploitation of minors. How did it work? Girls were lured with bait, promises of money, careers, advancement, and help. The trap snapped shut under the guise of harmless massages, which instantly turned into sophisticated abuse. And then came the worst part, coercion, when the victim herself became a tool for recruiting new, innocent children. In 2005, this system failed. One family decided to speak out. The Palm Beach police and the FBI began gathering evidence that was supposed to lead to a complete collapse. But instead, the unthinkable happened. In 2007, thanks to behind-the-scene maneuvering, Epstein escaped federal justice. He made a deal at the state level that reduced his sentence to a laughable minimum. The public was outraged, and journalists called it the highest form of legal cynicism. How could a man who had gathered so much evidence against himself buy his freedom while his victims continued to bear the burden? This deal was the key to all of his impunity. And what happened next showed that he had learned nothing. It seemed that he had ended the game in 2007, paying the minimum fine and remaining free. But what is hidden always becomes apparent. In 2018, when everyone seemed to have forgotten about him, one newspaper, the Miami Herald, decided to wake the sleeping giant. Their reports were the trigger. They lifted the veil on the years he had spent in the shadows. The public outrage he had ignored for so long finally reached a critical point, forcing Washington and New York to act. Federal prosecutors, who had previously preferred not to get involved with him, were forced to open an investigation. July 6, 2019. The world froze. The man who had evaded justice for nearly 2 decades was finally taken into custody. The official charge? Human trafficking for sexual exploitation. It was an ending that many thought impossible. His financial network was collapsing, and he was facing the most serious charges imaginable. But that was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of the darkest chapter. After all, how could this man, once in custody, disappear, leaving behind more questions than answers? What happened next changed our perception of justice forever. He was taken into custody as the most dangerous predator, but he was not alone in prison. On August 10, 2019, the world woke up to shocking news. Jeffrey Epstein was dead. The official version? Suicide. But in this story, the word suicide has become synonymous with the word lie for millions of people. Suicide has become synonymous with the word lie for millions of people. The circumstances of his death are a big hole in the justice system. Failed cameras, missing recordings, replaced guards. Every detail screamed that he was too valuable to live, and too dangerous to be allowed to speak. Although official investigations have always adhered to the version of his voluntary departure, one thing has taken root in the public consciousness. Epstein took with him something that they did not want to bring to light. After his departure, the sale of his bastions began. Islands, mansions, paintings. The money went to compensate the victims' bitter atonement for decades of evil. But the Epstein case itself became an eternal symbol of how the perfect fusion of unlimited money, absolute influence, and those institutional cracks that allow monsters to thrive for decades. Epstein's life is not just a story about a criminal. It is an anatomy of the system that protected him. If you want to know how these mechanisms work and how we can stop them, you need to keep digging. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our in-depth documentary analyses. And in the comments, share which detail in this case seems most unbelievable to you, based only on verified fact. Until the next investigation.